Okay, so now we're talking about evolution. And evolution is a change within a population over time. Um, it's a change in your genetic makeup over time. And a population evolves when when the genes mutate, and it gives a specific individual a genetic trait that can help them survive, which they would produce more offspring with that specific trait. No, I'll talk more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Types of evolution is microevolution versus macroevolution. So microevolution is a theory. And it is a small-scale version of evolution, saying that like the beetle, it changes its sizes or shapes of a specific species. So a beetle can be green, but then it mutates to be red, depending on like the type of food that it has or where it's located. And macroevolution is a hypothesis, so it has not yet been proven yet. And that would be an example of saying we came from bacteria, or would be like a bird has evolved from the dinosaurs. Charles Darwin, he is the father of evolution. The biggest excursion he has done was he traveled to the Galapagos Islands, and he studied finches, and then he also wrote a book, The Origin of Species. So that's just some facts about him. Oh, okay. So now, natural selection. It is evolution by natural selection occurs. So when an organism produces more offspring, and then an environment contains limited resources. So and there's always a variation exists among all organisms, and some traits provide organisms with an advantage, and traits with the favorable trait wins. Organism with the favorable trait wins. So what this is pretty much saying is that in an environment you have organisms, and all organisms has variations among them. And when one of them has a trait that can help them survive, saying like maybe a specific color to them, there might be lighter, and because there might be lighter flowers among them, they can blend in, so that'll help them survive. And if you can survive more, then you produce offsprings with that favorable trait, so that trait continues on, because you produce more offsprings.
And in order to move on, what has to happen that you're missing from that?
In order what?
For this whole process of natural selection to take place, what has to happen?
Reproduction.
Good.
What's happened?
So reproduction.
Yep.
Competition? Okay, so this is competition.
Sorry. Okay, so there's 3 types of natural selection. Do any of you know the first one? There is one extreme trait. There actually, yes. That one's one extreme trait. So saying if there is small, medium, and like tall height, and there's like tall trees, the tallest one would survive because it's extreme trait. Then the second one, the one with both extreme traits survive. Yes. So it would be like the small and tall ones will survive, and not the average. And the last one where the average trait survives.
Stable.
And this one's pretty like, instead of the tall and short one, it would be the average one.
Can you describe like a scenario of one of these?
Yes, direction would be like talking about the beetles again. So if there is a light beetle and like a dark one, and it was dark plants, then the darker one would survive because he would blend in. So
And over time, the darker one would reproduce
and produce more
offspring with this favorable trait, okay?
Yes. More evolution. So organisms also evolve adaptations to other organisms. So that can be coevolution. So 2 species evolve after a long-term interaction with one another. And does anyone know an extreme example of this? Mutualism would be an extreme example. So like the bee and the flower. That there's a mutual relationship, but over time, if the flower changes, the bee might have to change to continue surviving. So they evolve together. Other evolutions would be convergent evolution, which is two distinct species with differing ancestries evolved to display similar physical features. So that one would be like the falcon and I honestly don't know how to say that bird's name, but like the dinosaur one. They have they're two ancestor birds, and they say create to make a bat. So it's two distant species to make one. And divergent evolution is two related species that evolved to make one common ancestor. So it's a related species like the finches, and they have evolved, and because of their beaks, like in the Galapagos Island at Darwin, because of the plants, if there's one plant with the food source like deep in, they need like a long beak, so that will evolve. Or if they need to like break like a nut or something, they have a thicker beak, so they evolve. But it's the same species. Evolution by natural selection. So selective breeding of organisms for specific characteristics. So we do this a lot with crops. It's genetically modified organisms. So we modify it to produce more and to make it to our favorable, to make it to like what we need. Or like dogs, those are all, we also do that to like, we combine dogs to make them.
Organism for what specific?
Specific characteristics. Evolution of resistance. So organisms' ability to tolerate a particular chemical designed to kill is resistance. And examples of those is parasites and antibiotics. And this is a perfect example of evolution today, because there can be a species that they put an antibiotic, like with drugs with us, and or my bad, parasites, and you can spray on the animals and then it kills them. But if one pests, my bad, pests and it kills them. But if there's one that develops resistance, then they have that fatal trait and they'll produce more offsprings with that resistance. And then sooner or later, that pesticide will be in use because they'll all be resistant to it.
And that can lead to what? For farmers? What's the term? Pesticide what? This resistance of the pest leads to a problem for farmers known as what? Pesticide treadmill. Where they have to continue to apply different pesticides in order to get the job done, so they're spending more money and more toxins in the environment.
Now, speciation, evolution of new biological